Okay, so today we'll start with um, okay, next part of the molecular spectra. So this is essentially the last part of molecular spectra, which we'll discuss today. And so earlier in the past two classes, we have talked about what is the molecular spectra and what are the different components that are involved in it. So that includes rotational spectra, vibrational spectra, and electronic spectra, which we will discuss today. So we have also seen the effect of harmonicity of the molecule. So let's say, for example, if there is the molecule which has a symmetric structure, or let's say if the bond is quite rigid, or if the bond is flexible, then what sort of changes happens in the potential energy profile, which effectively gives rise to a change in the energy spectrum and basically final output whatever we are expecting from here. Okay, so that we have already seen the origin of anharmonicity and things like that. So today we will discuss about electronic spectra, where all these things will also be involved somehow. So let's first look at what is electronic spectra. So as it says that it's electronic, so that means somehow electrons are involved. It is the most complex one out of these three, and all diatomic molecules show this. So whenever there is any kind of electronic excitation in a molecule, then various possible electronic arrangements for a given molecule, they form a pattern of allowed electronic states of that molecule. Okay, and such electronic states are involved in the transition, which essentially gives rise to the electronic spectra. So as you know, any molecule will have electrons, and these electrons can be in different configurations and different states. So that is why the electronic spectra also gets influenced by different factors, which essentially makes it a little bit complicated. Now, for each of these electronic state of a molecule, it has a different potential energy curve characterized by a minimum, which means that the state is stable, at an equilibrium internuclear distance Re, dissociation limit dE, set of different vibrational and rotational levels. Okay, so let us first look at what are we saying here. That whenever we are talking about a particular electronic state of a molecule, then that electron belong to some entity. Okay, so here usually there will be a potential energy curve, and if we are talking about the stable configuration, then it has to be at the minimum of that energy curve. Okay, that means there will be a certain internuclear distance Re at which the minimum will be occurring, and there are some other quantities like dissociation limit and set of vibrational and rotational levels which will also come into picture. So let us look at this picture diagram, then it will be a little bit more understandable. So here, this is the molecular energy diagram as a function of internuclear distance. Okay. So here we have two potential energy curves. So as you see the shape of these curves, you can get some familiarity with the description which was made in the last class. So each of these curves, they have a minimum. So you see this is basically the position of the minimum of these energy curves. So more likelihood of occurring a state is at this position in the ground state. Okay, and this is anharmonic. That is why the left and right hand side of the curve are not exactly symmetric around Re or Re prime. Okay, so here we have multiple energy levels that are characterized by this quantum number nu. So basically for different quantum numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, we'll have different energy levels. Okay, so now here when we are talking about a molecule, then let's say these are two different entities and these are two different curves, and whenever we are talking about the transition, then we will look at the transition between these two curves. Okay, or let's say the energy levels that are appearing here. So here the top curve is characterized by this quantum number nu prime, and the bottom curve is characterized by this quantum number nu double prime. And the minimum of the top energy curve, it appears at distance re prime, and the bottom one is at re double prime. Okay. Now here there are several other quantities which are mentioned here. This Te prime, T double prime. We will see these things. What are these factors? Then D prime, which is dissociation energy, and then nu zero, then A exe, D double prime, etc. Okay, so let us look into these factors first. So here Te prime and T double prime, these are electronic energy of the molecule in wave number unit. Okay, so this is the electronic energy. So let's say if we are talking about a particular state, so let's say nu prime equal to 0 or nu double prime equal to 0, then this particular level will have this electronic energy level T prime, and the bottom one will be T double prime, which means the difference will be T prime minus T double prime, and we call it equivalent to the frequency nu e. Okay, so the difference is nu e, which is the minima of the two curves. We have electronic energy of excitation, which is characterized by this quantity AEXC. Okay. Now, an electronic transition involves a change in all these three levels, that is, electronic, vibrational, and rotational energies of the molecule. Okay. So, let us just look at this graph. So, you see, there is this quantity DE prime that is mentioned. There is the dissociation energy. So, what is this here? Let's say the molecule is at the lowest energy state. Now, if you provide it sufficient amount of energy so that it reaches the continuum, or let's say it goes above it, then that amount of energy is given by this quantity dE prime. Okay, and AEXC, this is basically the flat part of the curve. If you look at the difference between these two, so these are different quantities. Now, if there is any electronic transition, that means all the three levels, that means electronic, vibrational, and rotational energy levels, they have to be involved here. So typically this excitation, it happens in either visible or in the ultraviolet regime. Okay, and all three quantum numbers basically they play a role, and usually all diatomic molecule, they demonstrate some sort of an electronic spectra. Now, if there is an electronic transition, then the wave number of arising from the electronic transition can be written in this particular form. So let's say nu is the wave number. Then nu can be written as the sum of T prime minus T double prime plus G prime minus G double prime plus F prime minus F double prime. Okay. So T prime minus T double prime, that is nu e, we mentioned it earlier. So it is constant for a given electronic transition. So these are electronic energy levels. Okay. G prime, G double prime, they actually indicate different vibrational levels which are associated with quantum numbers, let's say nu prime and nu double prime. Okay, which means that the omega E and omega EXE, which we discussed in the last class, they will also be different for these two levels. Okay, and F prime, F double prime, these are basically the rotational energy levels of individual bands. Okay, so all three. So this is electronic, this is vibrational, and this is rotational. Okay, so all three energies are taking part into this. Now, if we ignore the rotational structure, because usually the rotational energy levels are kind of much higher and usually do not change in this course of action, so then we can write down nu 0 to be equal to nu e plus g prime minus g double prime. Okay, so nu e is basically t e prime minus t double prime, and that's why we are writing is nu e, and plus g prime minus g double prime. Now, From the expression which we derived in the last class, we can write down g prime to be equal to omega e prime times nu prime plus half minus omega e prime x e prime times nu prime plus half whole square. And similarly for g double prime, it will be omega e prime times nu prime, so nu double prime plus half minus omega e double prime x e double prime times nu double prime plus half whole square. Okay, so this is just the expanded relation. Now, on electronic transition, the delta nu is unrestricted. So any value of delta nu is allowed here. Okay. So if that is the case, then the intensity of transition, it will depend upon what new values are involved in the transitions. Okay, because that will tell us that what is the effective amount of energy that is being released, and essentially, or where the band will be located and how many transitions are happening, so that effectively determine the intensity. So if we just try to look at this simplistically, then we can have two different cases, energy levels. So there is an upper electronic state band and lower electronic state band. Okay, so for the upper electronic state band, so it is characterized by this quantum number nu prime. Okay, and here we are writing down different energy levels corresponding to nu prime value of 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And for the lower electronic state, we will also have different quantum number, that is nu prime equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay. So now you can see that the delta G value is basically specified by whatever will be the separation between the levels corresponding to individual bands. If there is a transition from the upper electronic state to the lower electronic state, then these red and blue lines, they will basically tell you what sort of transitions are happening here. So you can see corresponding to a specific value of delta nu, you will get certain number of lines. For example, let's say delta nu equal to 1, then you will get certain number of lines. If I say delta nu equal to 0, then you will get certain number of transitions. Similarly, for delta nu equal to minus 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Question here is that the point we are trying to make here is that number of transitions effectively determines that what will be the final intensity of the emitted spectral line. Okay, so here more number of transitions are happening corresponding to a specific value of delta nu. That means that particular band will be more intense. Okay, so here since there is no restriction on value of delta nu, that means any transitions are possible, but the intensity can vary. Okay, so is there any question on this so far? Okay, so now there is a very interesting principle here which comments on the intensity distribution that is observed in the case of electronic transitions. So this is called as Frank-Condon principle. So you probably will be hearing this name. Okay. So what it says is that the distribution of intensity among the bands of the electronic band system, they vary greatly from one molecule to other and one band system to another of the same molecule. Okay. So depending on what is the molecular structure, you can imagine the potential energy curve will be different, and as a result, basically the energy level distribution will also be different, which means that the energy bands that will be distributed in these cases will can vary from one molecule to other, also one band energy system to the other. Okay. So now, as we see that if we look at this electronic spectra, then we can basically get different line corresponding to different value of delta nu. Okay. So usually the intensity rises gradually and the maximum reaches at very high value of nu. Now, distribution of this intensity, it is actually explained by this Frank-Condon principle. So let us look at what it says. So it says that an electronic transition in a molecule takes place so rapidly compared to that of vibrational motion of the nuclei that the instantaneous internuclear distance and the velocity of the nuclei can be considered to be remaining unchanged during such transitions. Okay, so let us look at this thing into little bit more detail. So we are talking about electronic transitions. Okay, now as we know, these electrons are very light compared to the nuclei and etc. And the time scale that is involved in electronic transition is very small, or let's say these transitions are much faster compared to the vibrational motion, or let's say if there is a vibrational transition or rotational transition, things like that. Okay, so what it essentially says is that these electronic transitions happens so rapidly that during the time period the vibrational motion of the nuclei can be ignored because nucleus is much heavier. So within that time the equilibrium position of the nuclei might not have changed. Okay, or let's say the nucleus might not have moved from its original position when the transition started. Okay, is this point clear? Okay, so I mean it's kind of falls under the same line of Born Oppenheimer approximation. So as a result, the instantaneous internuclear distance and the velocity of the nuclei can be considered to be remaining unchanged during such transitions. Okay, so very simplistically, what we are saying is that let's say we have one energy curve here and other energy curve here. So this is characterized by RE prime, the minimum, and let's say this is RE double prime. Okay, so here let's say, so this is let's say our one level, and this is the other one, and if there is a electronic transition that is happening between these two. Okay, so if the transition is happening from let's say 1 to 2, so as we have seen that in the new there are all these quantities involved like delta t plus delta g plus delta f, all these are involved, right? Now delta t we have already defined, but now in delta g there will be the motion of the nuclei, all this involved. So essentially what we are saying is that the r values didn't change much during this course of action. Okay, so now if we look at the distribution of the wave function along this energy curve for different states. So here actually you can see the plot of psi square along different vibrational states of a diatomic molecule. So for nu equal to 0, you can see it is kind of like only one peak here, then nu equal to 1, there are two peaks and so on. Okay. So this nu square basically it's just it tells us the probability of the distribution. So higher the value of psi square, it means the greater is the likelihood of finding a nuclei at that specific value of Re. Okay, is this point clear? Okay, is it clear or not clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now here let us look at a particular case of electronic transition. So here we have these two energy level, potential energy curves and the distribution of psi square, let's say, along these two cases. So let's say one is characterized by E1 and other is E0. That is two hypothetical levels we are talking about in order to define a particular electronic transition. Okay. So here, as we have seen, there is no restriction on the value of delta nu. Means any transition is possible from any level to the other. Okay. However, let us look at the positions of let's say maximum, minimum of this psi square. Okay. So here let's say around R E double prime here. Okay. You can see this bottom basically wave function here is having a peak, and if we go along this straight line that is basically along that particular value of RE, you see that we are reaching at this point. Okay. Similarly, if we take the maximum, basically the value of RE, where maximum is appearing for the top curve, this is actually also crossing some particular, basically psi square curves here. Okay. So we can actually draw these lines. Okay. Now, what is the implication of drawing these lines? So we will very soon see these things. So that actually what Frank-Condon principle it states. It says that the most probable vibrational transitions are those in which one of the two turning points of a vibrational level of an electronic state lies at approximately the same internuclear distance as one of the two turning points of a level of two other electronic states, except nu equal to 0. Okay. So it says that if we want to know what is the most likelihood of observing a vibrational transitions, then we have to look at these chi-square graphs, and if the turning points of a particular vibrational level of a particular electronic state lies approximately at the same internuclear distance of the other, or let's say the turning point, or let's say if these two turning points are appearing at the same value of RE, then there is a higher likelihood of transition. Okay. So very simplistically, let's say if I look at this curve here, okay, let's look at maybe go back to this curve. Okay, so here, for example, you see this graph here on this right hand side, this particular red line. So here you see the peak of this curve is appearing at RE prime value. Okay. However, if I go down, then I see that there is another peak of this chi-square curve that is appearing here. Okay, right. So it means that from the top curve, the highest probability of finding the nuclei, or let's say, is at this value of RE. Okay, and the maximum of psi square for this bottom curve is also appearing at the same value of RE, which means that there is a higher likelihood of transition between these two levels. However, if I go back to this particular graph line, you see for the bottom energy curve, the maximum of psi square is appearing at RE prime. However, if I go along this line, then I don't see any such maximum is appearing at that value of RE, which means that the likelihood of having a transition to this is less likely. Okay, or it might appear whenever there is a peak or maximum of psi square that is found at this particular value of RE prime. Okay, so essentially higher will be the number of such psi square or maximum of psi that is appearing at this particular value of RE, higher will be the number of transitions, or essentially the transitions are more likely, so the intensity will also be higher. Contrary to the cases where the peak positions are not aligning at the same value of RE. Okay, so here these are the turning points, that either the maximum or the minimum. Okay, so if these are falling at the same value of RE, then higher will be the possibility of transition. Is this point clear? Anyone? Okay, no one is saying anything. Okay, let us look at this little bit more simplistically. You see here that here basically there are two energy curves. Okay, and in the bottom curve there are also two basically such size curve peaks are drawn. So you see at this value of R prime, this particular peak psi square has a peak maximum, this one has a maximum, this one has a maximum, which means that the transition is more likely here because the nucleus is more likely to be found at this particular value of R prime. Okay, however, if you look at this particular value of R prime, okay, so here then you are likely to see some minimum here. Okay, so that is why the transition is less likely to occur at this particular value. So that is what this Frank-Condon principle states. So here actually you can look at this diagram, which actually gives a much better kind of illustration on this fact. So here you can see that if the energy curve of these two different cases are looking like this, and then you see that this transition, you can see these arrows which actually tells you where the transitions is likely to occur and where it is less likely to occur. Okay, so any question on this? No? Okay. So let us just recap this thing quickly. So we talked about electronic spectra. So as it is the spectra that is associated with electronic motion and the energy levels, and electrons are not only the entities involved here. So rotational, vibrational energy levels are also involved. So we have actually seen that these energy curves and the different contributions of terms. So this is, where is the equation? Yeah. So this is the equation which actually determines what will be the transitions that or energies that are involved in the electronic transitions. Okay. So for example, this is the first term, that is T is the electronic energy difference, then G is the vibrational, then F is the rotational energy difference. Okay. And if usually in the rotational structure that does not change much in this course, so we are not, or let's say we are only talking about the ground state of this case. So then we, if we want to calculate the value of nu, we are basically interested in the value of nu e and the vibrational energy levels. So if we can expand this, then we can get this expression. Now the selection rule says that any value of delta nu is allowed, so it is unrestricted, which means that any kind of transitions are possible. However, the number of transitions determine that the intensity or final intensity of the spectral line. Okay, and then here we talked about Frank Condon principle, and it says that what is the most likelihood of having a transition in this case. Okay, okay, so I hope it is clear and there is no question. If you have, ask me. Okay, so if not, then so here is a problem. Maybe you can actually try to solve it. So the question says that the 0 point energy of the ground state of N2 molecule, that is nitrogen molecule, is 1176 centimeter inverse, and that lowest excited state is 7 to 7 centimeter inverse. The energy difference between the minimum of the two potential curves is 50,206 centimeter inverse. Then what is the energy of nu prime equal to 0 to nu double prime equal to 0 transition in centimeter inverse? And you can calculate the corresponding lambda also. Okay, so please try this. Anyone has done anything on this? Any progress? Any response? Everyone is silent. So let's see who are in the class. Okay. So how many of you are here? 16. Uh, Oishi,
Yes, sir.
any idea how to do this thing?
Sir, I'm trying.
You're not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, see, what is it asking you? We are talking about electronic transition. Okay, and then some quantities are given, 0 point energy, and the energy difference between these two. Okay, so let me just give you a little bit of more. So you have to use this formula. Okay, let's say to be precise, let's say you can use this formula. Write it down on paper. Have you done? Okay, now try it.
Hello, sir. Is it 210 angstrom?
Okay, I don't know the answer.
Hello.
Ah, yes. Now, hold on 1 second. Anyone else have found any answer? Okay. It's not 210, I think it's 2010. So,
Yes, sir. 2010.
so you have to use that formula. So you can see that G prime is 1176 centimeter inverse, G double prime is 727, nu is given, and all you have to do is that you have to plug in these numbers, and then you get this value of nu basically 0 to 0. So that is 49,757 centimeter inverse, and your lambda will be inverse of that. Okay, so this is the answer. Okay, this is a very easy problem. You if you just plug in these numbers, you get the value. Okay, so with this we are finishing the molecular spectra part also. So officially your syllabus is over, and we have 1 more week left, I think, right, before your exam. Okay, so you can be a little bit relaxed now, because I believe in the next week you will have multiple assignments and exams are coming probably. So yeah, from my side, you will not have any extra stress on this. At least the syllabus is done. So I'll share with you the PPT, and I'll share with you maybe one or two assignments I'll share so that you can submit. Basically, let's say before the end sem, try to do it because I have to grade also. And so next week, when you come to class, of course, but we will be doing few things. So there will be doubt clearing, of course. If you want to have any doubt clearing, you let me know. So we can of course discuss. So you please go through the materials and contents, and if you have any question, you let me know, and then we can discuss. And I believe that you didn't have any exam, any class test in this part so far. So we'll take also one test. So today is Thursday, I think. So maybe on Monday we'll take one test. Is it okay? Okay. So on Monday we'll take one test, and assignment I'll give, and rest I think we'll discuss on Monday. So I'll send you some more details if there is any. So yeah, that's it. If you have any question or comments, you let me know now. Nothing. Okay. So then I'm finishing this class here. Okay, and I'll see you in the next class. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So, okay.
Thank
Bye.
you, sir.
Thank you.